This team it's just broken me. It really has. Welcome to my reaction to Everton 2, Forest 0. Good morning, good evening, or good night. Hope you guys are doing well. And welcome to the latest video. And I'll tell you off the bat, I haven't got it within me to rant today. I've just got some key points that I want to put across and get your guys' thoughts on, as always, in the comments. If you're enjoying the content, please don't forget to hit that like button. Subscribe to Forest Fan TV if you are new. And if you can do me a massive favour, make sure you've installed Sofascore completely free to do. Links pinned in the comments. And a massive thank you to everyone who's donated to the new PC fund and were patient with us yesterday while the PC was having an absolute nightmare on the watch along. So thank you guys so much. If you have a spare £1 or £2 and you could chuck it towards the fund, I'll leave that pinned in the comments below. You guys are amazing. And that really is the highlight of yesterday for me. Look, there's so much to talk about in this game, and it was quite therapeutic to hear you guys having your say yesterday on the Forest phone-in. And if you haven't watched that, go check out some cracking opinions. And thank you to everyone who called in. But I just want to start with some facts. I just want us to have a look at the table. And for me, this is the fundamental problem with Forest this season. Whether you think VAR is corrupt or the PGMLOL even is corrupt, or Forest are not good enough, or you still wanted Cooper, or you wanted Nuno, whatever you stand, let's look at some cold hard facts. If we look at the Premier League table, if you take Sheffield out of the equation, and let's look how high up the table you have to go before you find a team that Forest have beaten. Sheffield, obviously we've beaten them. Let's take them out of the equation. Burnley, drew. Luton, 2 draws. Everton, 2 losses. Brentford, a loss and a draw. Palace, 2 draws. Still no win. We're up to 14th. Bournemouth, draw and a loss. Fulham, we finally get to a win. It takes us to get to 12th in the league for those teams in and around us before we have a win against them. And this is the fundamental reason for me why Forest are where they are in the league. Because when we play those crunch matches, the 6-pointers, as everyone calls them, the old cliche, we are nowhere to be seen. And the ones that we drew, some could argue we could have lost. On top of that, the Burnley one, for example. And, you know, the Brentford one, Matt Turner could have given away a penalty, etc. So even within the ones where we got points, we were still struggling. Now, you could argue we could have won the Palace one. But the point here is that's not acceptable. You can't keep not winning on the teams in and around you. Now, you can throw away form into that. 2 wins this season, 3 wins in nearly 2 years away from home is embarrassing. It's not even pathetic. It goes to embarrassing. And then let's move up the table still. Wolves haven't beaten them. Brighton haven't beaten them. And then watch what happens here. Between 9th and 6th, Chelsea we've beaten. Man United we've beaten. West Ham we've beaten. Newcastle we've beaten. Between 6th and 9th, we've at least won once or haven't played the other team yet this season. And that's just mind-baffling. Mind-baffling. Those are the teams you'd expect a good result to be maybe a draw out of them. And what's interesting and maybe giving you a little hope here is that we still have to play one of those teams at home in Chelsea. It almost feels like Forest just can't play the teams in and around them. It almost feels like our biggest problem still, even under Nuno, is that when we're forced into playing out rather than being the underdogs in the game, we don't have a clue about what we were doing. And that's what we saw yesterday with Everton. I said it so many times yesterday. Forest were playing like it was a pre-season friendly. Everton, look, everyone's saying Everton were rubbish. I don't think they were as bad as rubbish. I thought they played better than Forest, but nowhere near where a team needs to be to beat a team, if that makes sense. We were just so lackluster. Our midfield just doesn't exist. I thought Dominguez was okay. I thought he played better than Yates when Yates came on. But in general, like, what is our midfield doing? Why can't we control the midfield ever in a game? Danilo, called him a fair weather golfer. He came back to life when the sun started shining. The sun was out in Liverpool yesterday, and he had probably one of his worst games of the season. The lack of consistency is so inconsistently consistent that it's getting ridiculous with the midfield. And you can see that Nuno's struggling with these options because he's always chopping the 6 and the 8 around. We haven't had a settled pairing. It was a bit like last year until very late in the season where Cooper went to his back 3 and he finally figured out the 3 centre-backs he wanted. We saw all season Cook coming in, Worrell going out, McKenna in, out, shake it all about, Niakate getting injured, Felipe, etc. Chopping and changing. Now we've moved that slightly up the pitch into the 6 and the 8. And we're completely struggling. It almost makes me think maybe we have to, well, definitely something has to change, definition of madness. Maybe we need to put a third extra body in that midfield and try a 4-3-3. And maybe see if that changes something. Because I can't remember a midfield battle this season that Forest have dominated and won. And when you're talking about the teams like Sheffield in and around, well, you know, below us, even Burnley and Luton, I don't think we've dominated midfields at all. So that to me is a huge problem. Those games in and around us. And we've got Sheffield coming up in and around us and Burnley coming up in and around. Well, Sheffield are nowhere in and around anyone. But you get my point in there. I almost feel that Forest have more chance against Man City and Chelsea. One, because we're at home. And secondly, because we're not expected to win. Therefore, we can go back into our shell, hit them on the counter-attack, etc. And it's just worrying. So that's the first point I wanted to discuss. What are your guys' thoughts on, ignore the away form, I mean, we all want to, but about the way we play against these teams in the bottom half? The results are embarrassing as far as I'm concerned. Now, let's move on to the big elephant in the room and this Forest tweet from yesterday. And my stance hasn't changed on it. And it was quite interesting to hear yesterday, again, when Vizza and Everton Mike called in, and we kind of had a quick chat between the three of us, an external perspective that hasn't got Forest goggles on. And it was quite similar to mine. I agree. I think what was said needed to be said, but didn't need to be said by the club. Look, there's so many times where we've been in discussion with the club where we're like, this needs to be said, or, you know, the club will ask influencers. They speak to a lot of us. There's other channels the club can use, but to bring it directly out from the official Forest Twitter base, like, what would you call it? Handler, I think is the right word, is not really befitting of a club like Nottingham Forest, in my opinion. I have nothing against those of you who agree with it, and Simon was saying on the call-in yesterday, it needed to be said, what other avenues are left? My argument back to that is, well, what's going to change off the back of this? Because we've tried the Clattenburg experiment. I called it out from day one. What a waste of money. What a waste of time. I don't get it. To this day, I still don't get it. He's gone and done a piece in the Daily Mail now. What's that achieved? What's that achieved now? We're not going to get our points back. We're not going to get the match replayed. We're not going to get penalties. And when Forest is saying we're going to explore all our options, what are your options? You don't have any. I think back earlier on in the season when Spurs and Liverpool played, and Liverpool said something similar in terms of exploring their options. Well, that game never got replayed. Liverpool never got their points back. So, and they're a Cartel 6. So what's going to happen to Forest? Absolutely nothing. We're literally pissing in the wind when it comes to this one. And I said it at half time, that my worry was that Forest would go in feeling aggrieved, feeling the world is against us, the victim mentality thing again that we have. And I was more worried about the second half because you can feel it. You can feel it that the players are going in. And instead of talking about tactics and talking about why are we not attacking Ashley Young more down that side, Callum, get behind him. Stop cutting in. Take him on. You've got his number. You know, Einar, overlap more. Create the overload on that side. These conversations, I guarantee you, not happening. They're sitting in that dressing room at halftime saying, woe is me. Why haven't we had a penalty? The world is against us. Leave that to us as the fans during the match. We will cry, we will scream about it because we can't impact what's happening on the pitch. Only you guys, as in the players and the management, can. So have it or talk about it, but use it as siege mentality rather than victimization. And then if you want to be victims about it, be victims about it after the match, not during the match. You have to show some professionalism. And that's the whole thing with the club's tweet as well, is the professional look of Nottingham Forest. Look, I will say on here, we will say what we think, but we're fans. We can do that. You know, we'll say things, we'll call people whatever and call people out and what have you. That's, you know, some find it okay, some don't. In my opinion, that's fine for fans to do, as long as it doesn't cross certain lines. But for a club to do it, and the speed of the tweet, the way it came out literally on the full-time whistle, it shows that it was already been prepared and it was instantly dropped at full time. Now the argument is, okay, it's had an impact, everyone's talking about it, but that in itself for me is a problem, because the Forest fan base are no longer really talking about how woeful that performance was. It's all about, was it a pen? Are they corrupt? Etc, etc. When you could call out every single player on that pitch for not showing any fight or ambition or caringness for it. It's another weekend ruined. The only blessing is it was ruined on Sunday rather than on Saturday afternoon, and then it ruins the rest of your weekend. And it's just got to the stage where I feel broken. Not just on Forest, but on football. I miss the days where you would watch a match from 0 to 90. You'd walk away either happy, sad, angry, or whatever, but it's because of what you saw on the pitch. Yeah, performances, results, points, whatever it is. Now it feels like every time Forest play, there has to be this pantomime sideshow that's happening alongside it. There has to be something that we're seeing ourselves with as victims from. And I've cried, you know, foul on so many things this season, but I did say it a few weeks back. It doesn't matter anymore. All that matters is that we stay up, and we can't impact these things after the game's finished. And I'm hearing things like people saying we should boycott the Man City match, as in the players. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to do an Everton mic here. And I'm just going to be like, how's that going to help us? How's that going to help us? Yes, it creates a scene. Yes, it creates people talking. But at the end of the day, if you said to me, play against Man City, take 3 points, or boycott the game and guarantee yourself no points. No, I'm saying we'll get 3 points against Man City. But the whole point is, we did last season, we got a point against them. Do we really need to make a stance that much? Where the most important thing for me right now is that survival in the Premier League happens. And that brings me on to my final point, is survival. I don't know if we stay up anymore. I don't know. Vizza was convinced we will. He's a Burnley fan. I'm sure you guys all know. Mike's convinced that we will. You guys didn't sound that convinced on the call-in. All I'm convinced about is it would not surprise me if Nick DeMarco earns more points in the next month than this team does on the pitch. And we need him to get 2 back, because that puts us 3 points ahead of Luton. That gives us the goal difference swing as well, as long as we don't get tonked by Man City. And that might have to be enough, because honestly, do I see us going to Sheffield and winning? In theory, yes, but with our away form, no. Burnley, if we need something on the last day, I don't even want to imagine what that away performance will be like. Man City's Man City. And that leaves us with Chelsea, who are undefeated in 7 now in the Premier League, finding a bit of form, played really well against Man City in the Cup. I don't know where this ends. I really don't. And we're just here for the ride. But the sooner this goddamn season finishes, the better. In all my years of supporting Forest, I just can't think of a more stressful year as a fan. It I can't. I'm trying to go back as far as I can go back, and I can't. What do you guys think? Is this the most stressful season you've had as a Forest fan? That's the video for you guys. I know it's a bit depressing. Please don't forget to like, subscribe if you are new. But I said I wasn't going to rant and I didn't. It's just depressing. It's just depressing. We got Gueye tonight at 8 p.m. Make sure you tune in. Thank you again to everyone who's donated to my PC fund. We're getting there one step at a time. Hopefully Forest can get there too. We'll see you tonight on Gueye. Come on, you Reds.